Hello children, today we will start the age of industrialization from history class 10th NCERT. The chapter starts with a figure with the title Dawn of the Century. Actually, it is a cover page of a music book produced by popular music publisher E.T. Paul in 1900. In the given print, Goddess, the angel of progress, is bearing the flag of the new century. She is standing on a wheel with wings, which symbolizes time. Her flight is taking her into future. All the signs of modernity like a railway, camera, machines, printing press and factory are behind her. The picture is glorifying the machine and technology. Figure 2 shows two magicians. The one at the top is Aladdin, who builds a beautiful palace with his magic lamp. Whereas the other at the bottom is the modern mechanic, who with his tools is creating bridges, ships, towers, and high rise buildings. Aladdin is representing East and the past, whereas a mechanic stands for the West and the modernity. Industrialization is considered to be the backbone of economic development. In this chapter, we will look into the history of industrialization by focusing on Britain, the first industrial nation, and then on India. Come to Unit 1 before the Industrial Revolution. We often associate industrialization with the growth of factory industry. When we talk of industrial production, we refer to factory production. When we talk of industrial workers, we mean factory workers. So historians generally begin the industrialization with the setting of factories. But there is a problem with such ideas. Even before factories began to appear in England and Europe, there was large scale industrial production for an international market, and this was not based on machines or factories. Many historians now refer to this phase of industrialization as proto industrialization. In the 17th and 18th centuries, merchants from the towns in Europe began moving to the countryside, supplying money to peasants and persuading them to produce for an international market. But with the rising population, the expansion of world trade, and the acquisition of colonies in different parts of the world, the demand for goods began growing. But merchants could not expand production within the towns. Why? Because here urban crafts and trade guilds were powerful. Now, who were these trade guilds? Actually, these were associations of producers that trained craftspeople, maintained control over production, regulate competition and prices, and restricted the entry of new people into the trade. No new trader was allowed to enter into the trade. Rulers granted different guilds the monopoly right to produce and trade in specific products. So it was therefore difficult for new merchants to set up businesses in towns, so they turned to the countryside. Question is, why poor peasants and artisans began working for these merchants? Because there are so many factors like at that time open fields were disappearing and commons were being enclosed, so the villagers who had earlier depended on common lands for their survival, they had to now look for alternative sources of income. And many had tiny plots of land which could not provide work for all members of the household. The small size of land holdings cannot be mechanized. And why they are in small size? Because of rising population and capturing the land areas by rich landlords, or you can say by law of inheritance. So these small tiny plots which could not provide work for all the members of the household. So when merchants came and offered advances to produce goods, Peasants eagerly agreed because by working for the merchants they could remain in the countryside and they could do both the things together, cultivation as well as production for these traders. Income from proto-industrial production supplemented their shrinking income from cultivation. It also allowed them a fuller use of their family labor resources. What was the result of this system? A close relationship developed between the towns and the countryside. Merchants were based in towns, but the work was done mostly in the countryside. A merchant clothier in England purchased wool from a wool stapler and carried it to the spinner, and then from a spinner to weavers, then fullers, and to dyers. Means woolen industry had so many processes, and the finishing was done in London before the export merchant sold the cloth in the international market, and London in fact became the finishing center. This proto-industrial system was a part of a network of commercial exchange. It was controlled by merchants, and the goods were produced by a vast number of producers within their family, not in factories. At each stage of production, means carding and weaving and spinning, dyeing, 20 to 25 workers were employed by each merchant. It means each clothing merchant was employing hundreds of workers. Now see the new words. Stapler, a person who staples or sorts wool according to its fiber. Fuller, a person who fulls, and that is gathers cloth by pleating. Carding, the process in which fibers such as cotton or wool are prepared prior to spinning. So these three new words you have to learn for 1 mark question, and the next 1 mark question is why London is known as finishing center. Unit 1.1, the coming up of the factory. The first symbol of the new era was cotton. In 1760, Britain was importing 2.5 million pounds of raw cotton to feed its cotton industry. By 1787, this was 22 million pounds. This increase was linked to a number of changes within the process of production. Let's look at some of these. Number one, a series of invention in each step of the production process, like carding, twisting, spinning, and rolling. These inventions enhanced the output per worker, enabled each worker to produce more, and made possible the production of stronger threads and yarn. Then, the creation of cotton mill by Richard Arkwright. Now, the costly new machines could be purchased, set up, and maintained in the mill. Within the mill, all the processes were brought together under one roof management, which allowed a more careful supervision over the production process, a watch over quality, and the regulation of labor, all of which had been difficult to do when production was in the countryside. Unit 1.2, the pace of industrial change. How rapid was the process of industrialization? See, first, the most dynamic industries in Britain were cotton and metals. Cotton was the leading sector in the first phase of industrialization. Then, after the expansion of railways, the iron and steel industries led the way. In England from the 1840s and in the colonies from the 1860s, the demand for iron and steel increased rapidly. By 1873, Britain was exporting iron and steel worth 77 million pounds, double the value of its cotton export. Second, the new industries could not easily displace traditional industries. Even at the end of the 19th century, less than 20% of the total workforce was employed in technologically advanced industrial sectors. Remaining 80% was producing within domestic units, not within the factories. Then, the pace of change in the traditional industries was not set by steam powered cotton or metal industries. Some ordinary and small innovations were the basis of growth in many non mechanized sectors. Fourth, technological changes occurred slowly. They did not spread dramatically. New technology was expensive, and merchants and industrialists were cautious about using it. The machines often broke down, and repair was costly. Machines were not as effective as their inventors and manufacturers claimed. Consider the case of the steam engine. James Watt improved the steam engine produced by Newcomen and patented the new engine in 1781. His industrialist friend Matthew Boulton manufactured the new model, but for years he could find no buyers. Now, children, take the screenshot of these questions and prepare well.